So what happens when the money you thought was perfectly safe in your bank account just isn't there anymore? We're going to dive deep into a massive financial crisis in China where that exact nightmare became terrifyingly real for thousands of people. We'll break down how it happened and, maybe more importantly, why it could be a serious warning sign for all of us.
All right, let's start with the most basic, gut-wrenching fear anyone with a bank account has. Waking up one day and realizing you can't get to your own money. For tons of ordinary people in China, this wasn't just a bad dream, it was their new reality.
And this was the desperate chant you could hear across the country. These weren't complex financial demands or anything like that. No, it was just the raw, heartbreaking cry from people who had poured their life's work into a system they trusted, only to find themselves completely locked out.
Just imagine for a second seeing a balance like this on your screen. It's a huge amount of money. For one 60-year-old man, this was everything. His entire life savings, scraped together from over 30 years of grueling night shifts, all saved up for his daughter's wedding. The number was right there on the screen, but the money, it was gone.
You know, what's truly terrifying is seeing your balance, clear as day, but being told, nope, you can't have it. You hit the withdraw button and nothing. This wasn't just some technical glitch. It was like a digital wall slamming shut right between people and their futures.
And make no mistake, this wasn't an isolated incident or just one bank having a bad day. We're talking about a total systemic freeze. Across 377 different banks, the doors were locked, the phone lines went dead, and the ATMs turned into useless metal boxes. People's life savings were literally trapped inside a financial system that just stopped working for them.
So when all these depositors gathered, just trying to get some answers, trying to ask for their own money back, you'd think they'd be met by bank managers, right? Or maybe some government officials? No. They were met with riot shields and batons. The state's response was to label these hardworking, ordinary people as disruptors of social order and just break them up with force.
So that begs the question, where did all the money go? I mean, the savings of millions of people don't just disappear into thin air. Well, they were siphoned off to cover a mountain of hidden debt so unbelievably massive, it's hard to even wrap your head around it.
The estimated size of this secret, off-the-books debt held by China's local governments is just staggering. We're talking about roughly $7 trillion US. It's a number so huge it's almost meaningless, and it's the black hole that just swallowed everyone's savings.
To try and put that number into perspective, think about this. It would take South Korea's entire national budget, and I mean without spending a single one on defense, welfare, education, anything. It would take 14 years of saving every penny just to pay it off. It's a functionally impossible amount of debt.
So how did they even get into this mess? Well, the playbook they used was actually pretty simple. First, local officials who legally couldn't borrow money directly just created a bunch of ghost companies. These fake companies then took out billions in loans from local banks where the presidents were often put in place by those same officials. And the final step? When it was time to pay the interest on those huge loans, they just took the money directly from the savings accounts of regular people.
And this wasn't just a problem with a few small-town banks. Oh no. Even China's biggest state-owned banks were playing this game. Instead of admitting a loan had gone bad, they just, extend the deadline by 10 years, making a completely rotten loan look perfectly healthy on the books. We're talking about financial fraud on a national scale. The end result is this shocking disconnect between what the government says is happening and what's actually happening. While Beijing is out there bragging that only 1.6% of bank loans are bad, independent analysis from global agencies suggests the real number is closer to 27%. That means nearly a third of the assets are rotten to the core. Now, this hidden debt bomb didn't just blow up the savings accounts of the poor. The rot started to spread upwards, creeping into the world of high finance, and it created a whole other crisis among China's wealthy investors.
This all happened in the world of so-called shadow banking. You can think of it like the Wild West of finance, a place that operates completely outside the rules. It promised these massive returns, and it attracted doctors, lawyers, and executives who poured billions into these products thinking they were backed by big, stable companies.
And then, the dominoes started to fall. First, Zhongji Group, a huge wealth manager, suddenly went bankrupt and poof, billions of dollars in investments just gone. Then came JWR, an online gold platform that promised ridiculous 100% returns. 150,000 investors piled in, only to discover it was all a giant Ponzi scheme. The company's vaults?
They had no gold, not a single gram.
So, you've got banks failing, investment schemes collapsing. How did the government respond? Well, not with a massive bailout for the people, that's for sure. Instead, they started rolling out a powerful new tool for, you guessed it, unprecedented financial control.
It's called the digital yuan, and on the surface, they market it just like Apple Pay, a super convenient way to pay for stuff with your phone. But its real purpose is about one thing: absolute control. It gets rid of physical cash, it lets the state track every single thing you buy, and, this is the most chilling part, it allows the government to put conditions on your money. They could give your money an expiration date or program it to only work in certain cities.
And this right here represents a fundamental shift in what money even is. With this kind of technology, money is no longer your property. It becomes a privilege, something the state allows you to use, and a privilege that can be taken away at any moment. During a bank run, the government doesn't even need riot police anymore. It can just delete the withdraw button from everyone's app. Okay, so why should a banking crisis happening in China matter to those of us watching from the outside? Well, because when you start to look a little closer, you can see some really unsettling parallels in South Korea's own economy.
I mean, just look at the numbers when you put them side by side. It's pretty stark. In China, 70% of a family's wealth is tied up in real estate. In South Korea, it's even higher, at 75%. Korea's household debt compared to its economy is literally the highest in the world, and its birth rate is somehow even lower than China's.
The exact same cracks in the foundation are already here in South Korea, an economy that is dangerously dependent on real estate prices, really risky financing for big construction projects, and a demographic crisis that threatens to completely empty out its pension funds. The basic structure of the problem is almost identical.
And what this all means is that China's crisis isn't just some story about a foreign country. It's a living, breathing cautionary tale. We really can't afford to just look away, because what we're seeing might just be a preview of what can happen when these huge systemic risks are ignored.
And that leaves us with the final and most provocative question we have to ask ourselves. The forces that brought China to this breaking point, the hidden debt, the property bubble, the demographic decline, they aren't unique. Watching how this crisis unfolds could very well be a glimpse into a future that we must work urgently to avoid.